I'm not really over you. No, I'm not supposed to say it, but I miss you. I don't know what to do when I'm alone, sitting on the bathroom floor, trying not to call you more. Maybe it's wrong to want you back.
Go through, it's 1 in 10 women have it, but no one talks about it because periods and menstruation it's something that I feel like has this stigma around it of don't talk about it. No, we don't talk about that. It's something that you keep to yourselves. And because of that, I feel like anyone around me that might have had it didn't talk about it because it's just one of those things that society kind of expects you not to talk about. Like, no, you don't talk about your periods. That's a personal thing. Keep that to yourself. Hi, my name is Lily Brooks O'Brien. I am 17 years old and I have endometriosis. I've been an actress since I was 5 years old. I started in musical theater. I played Matilda on the National Broadway tour of Matilda the Musical. And then I moved into film and TV acting. And my journey with endometriosis started around when I was 13, when I started menstruating. I'm a working actor, and at that time I was actively auditioning and working every single day, going to in-person auditions, working on set. And then when my second period rolled around, I noticed a huge change. I thought something was wrong. I was bleeding heavily. I was passing at least 6 to 8 like cutie sized blood clots that really scared me. And I was, among all of the heavy bleeding and the blood clots, I was also just in a tremendous amount of pain.
Hi, I'm Bella Mae Mortis. I'm 18 years old. I was diagnosed with endometriosis just a year ago. Yeah, it started when I was 14. It kind of progressed and got worse all the way through 17, which is when I got my excision surgery. I actually almost canceled my surgery 2 weeks before because I'd rather keep living in the unknown than have them tell me that it wasn't real and prove all those doctors right that it said it was all in my head, because I didn't want there to be a chance that, maybe I could never fix this. Maybe it was just my brain and maybe this was just how I was going to have to live.
Endometriosis is a disease typically of reproductive age women. I like to go into a little bit of anatomy. I think it's helpful for this portion of it, but if we think about the uterus, okay, the uterus is actually made up of a few really distinctive layers, okay? So there's 3 layers. There's an outside layer, a middle layer, and there's an inner layer. So that inner layer, that's something called the endometrium, okay? That's a really special layer. That's actually the layer that grows every single month when young women start to have periods, right? So that layer grows, it proliferates, and actually if it doesn't see an embryo or implantation, so that means pregnancy, those cells actually shed, and that's your period. So how I describe endo, especially to my young patients, is it's those special glands, those special cells outside of the uterus. So that could be on the back of your bladder, on top of your bowels, anything typically in the abdomen. And so I often say it's like having your period times 10 or times 100.
I didn't like to laugh because it hurt, and I didn't like hugs because they hurt, and I was in this bubble of pain.
Well, as a teenager, I wasn't aware that I had endometriosis. I remember having debilitating periods. I think it was, I remember being quite young. I got my period when I was 11. And I remember my first couple of years of having a period being incredibly painful. But I didn't know that I had endometriosis. I didn't find out that I had endometriosis until I was 35.
So the way that endometriosis has affected my life, and particularly as a teen, is I think it's incredibly isolating condition to live in pain, but not have your pain be recognized.
You feel like it's crazy because everybody's like, but it's my head.
Endometriosis have so many different definitions, but we need to understand endometriosis is a disease that is associated with menstrual pain. It starts like that.
My name is Hannah Hope O'Brien. I'm 15 years old, and I'm the director of this film, and I have endometriosis. I've had problems ever since I started menstruating, which is around when I had just turned 11. I had trouble eating things, and I had trouble just stomach problems, and I thought that I just had just a regular teenage period cramps, but obviously that was not the case. And I do tech crew at my school, and I am an electrician. I weld, I make sets, I do carpentry, and I also do lighting design. So a lot of the time when it comes to endometriosis pains, if it's affecting my life, I'm somewhere where it's not as convenient to take a moment to sit down. I started to trick myself into thinking that I wasn't in pain because I was doing what all these doctors were telling me. But in reality, I think that it was just that tricking myself into thinking and saying that I wasn't in pain was much easier than going out and looking for answers and begging doctors to listen to me because it wasn't in my head.
Cardinal symptoms are painful periods, heavy bleeding, and stomach discomfort initially. Those are cardinal. Then these get more specific, the duration of the painful period, more than 2 days, it becomes 3 days, 4 days. Even though after the period is over, pain continues. Pain consistently on one side, right or left. GI symptoms become diarrhea, constipation, painful bowel movement. Later in life, when they're sexually active, there's issue with during intimacy. There's deep contact pain. It is progressive, repetitively same manner.
Endometriosis affected me so much when I was a teenager, and I had never even heard of the word endometriosis until I was 24.
And we searched for answers for 10 years. It took me 25 years to be officially diagnosed.
I waited over 10 years to receive a diagnosis.
Before I was diagnosed with endometriosis was when I got my appendix removed. I had COVID at the same time, and I woke up one morning, probably 2 days after I had tested positive for COVID, and I was in so much pain on the right side of my abdomen. And apparently that's some sort of symptom of appendicitis. And I was like, it's probably just like a COVID thing, whatever. So I tried to go back to sleep. My mom was working from home in the living room, and she was on a call. And at some point, I remember Googling, I was like, why does my right side hurt so much? And appendicitis came up, and I texted my mom. I was like, can you please get off your call? We need to go to the hospital. My mom gets off her call. She comes in the room. She's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, Mom, something's wrong. And I go to the bathroom to try to put on clothes to go to the hospital. And I just start throwing up. And we go to the hospital, go through a whole ordeal, and they tell me that, oh, well, your appendix looks a little angry, so we're going to take your appendix out. And I go into surgery. They just quickly take my appendix out. The surgeon takes no photos, doesn't look into anything any further than just taking my appendix out. And I later find out that my appendix being removed was actually just because of my endometriosis. Most likely, I had endometriosis lesions on my appendix, and that's why it was slightly inflamed, because it wasn't appendicitis inflamed. It was just a little angry, is what the doctors called it. And yeah, I just think it's so crazy that I had my appendix removed before they even took a thought or a gander at it being endometriosis.
Yeah, so I started experiencing endometriosis symptoms when I was 14 years old. At the time that my symptoms started, it was during the COVID pandemic, so you couldn't really go to the doctor and get checked up. It was only emergent cases. So a lot of it I spent at home, debating whether or not I should be going to the emergency room and exposing myself to COVID, which at some times seemed worth it.
And so many women and girls feel this. A lot of people feel that they don't have answers for the pain, the nausea, the fatigue. That was my journey and my story. Is I had no idea what was going on with me, and it just kept escalating. Endometriosis affected my everyday life.
in a lot of ways, it's affected my work, it's affected my personal life, it's affected my love life, my relationships.
And as a result, I often found myself in extreme and excruciating pain in classes.
I think anxiety is a great question. Anxiety comes from not knowing. Anxiety is insecurity and expectation, anticipation of the period is going to come, and you start tightening up. You know it's going to happen. So the experience starts to build up. Depression comes later when that anxiety is not answered intelligently, and there's mistrust and mistrust of not getting help, not to be believed in.
It kind of progressed and got worse all the way through 17, which is when I got my excision surgery. I saw a lot of doctors starting when I was 15, when things started to open up again. All of them told me, it's normal woman stuff. Like, everyone gets periods, everyone feels pain, everyone gets cramps, like, it's fine. And a lot of them took one look at my mental health history and saw that I had anxiety and brushed me off, that it was psychosomatic. So a lot of time I spent kind of fighting with doctors to be heard.
Even if you're chronically ill and in pain every day, it's still so easy to doubt your pain and not believe in yourself. Like, you're constantly questioning yourself, you're constantly thinking, what if I'm making it all up? And it's so scary.
Obviously, it's very, very important, not abusing very powerful pain medication, which is indiscriminately and very irresponsibly could be used by some physicians.
Definitely scared that my endo is going to go out of remission while I'm still in college, and that it may get in the way of me completing my undergraduate degree, and I might have to take a leave of absence to get another surgery if it grows back. So that's definitely very scary, and obviously I'm concerned about fertility. It's a big concern with endometriosis.
I think probably it's pretty isolating too, right? So you have a group of 10 friends or whatever, whatnot, and your experience, your periods, whether it starts like that or not, is very different. And so everybody's playing sports, they're doing things that you want to do, and you can't do that.
I had my surgery in September. The resident came in and I asked her what they found, and they were like, Lily, we found 21 endometriosis lesions. And I think that moment when she said we found endometriosis, I just felt, I was like, oh, finally over. I finally get to kind of put this behind me. I mean, obviously not forever. Endometriosis isn't something that is cured, but at least for now I can keep it at bay, and I don't have to live my life wondering when my next endometriosis episode is going to come, or wondering if I'm going to have to cancel plans when I schedule them, or wondering if I'm not going to be able to go to the Taylor Swift concert because I'm going to be in bed in pain. It was just one of those moments where I just felt so relieved.
I mean, I would say trust yourself and find a provider that's going to listen to you. And if that's not the provider sitting in front of you, find another provider, right? So again, what he said is, I mean, no teenager wants to go to the doctor. I can think about 1,000 better things to do. So if that is you, then there's an issue there that somebody needs to figure out. It may likely be endometriosis. It could be something else, right? But someone should listen to that.